Society tells us it's better to be in a toxic relationship than to be alone. We celebrate engagements without questioning if the couple is actually happy, congratulate people for staying in lifeless marriages, and treat single people like they're suffering from some kind of social disease that needs to be cured. We've created a culture where being alone is seen as a failure, where staying single past a certain age makes people look at you with pity, and where we'd rather be miserable together than peaceful alone. But what if everything we've been taught about relationships is a carefully constructed lie designed to keep us dependent and afraid? Love, it's a force that moves mountains, builds empires, and breaks hearts. Yet here we are, billions of us waiting for that perfect someone to complete us. Waiting for that magical moment when another human being will finally make us feel whole. But what if I told you that this waiting is the very thing keeping you from experiencing the love you so desperately seek? What if this constant yearning for external validation is actually pushing away the very thing you want most? You're sitting there right now, perhaps with a slight ache in your heart, thinking about that person who hasn't called, that relationship that didn't work out, or that future partner who hasn't shown up yet. You created this perfect story in your mind about how everything will fall into place once you find the one. But let me ask you something. How much of your life are you missing while waiting for this story to begin? We've been conditioned since childhood to believe in this fairy tale ending. The movies we watch, the books we read, the songs we listen to, they all reinforce this idea that somewhere out there someone is destined to complete us, that once we find them, everything will magically fall into place. Our insecurities will vanish, our wounds will heal, and we'll finally feel worthy. But here's the truth that nobody wants to hear. Nobody can love you into loving yourself. Let that sink in for a moment. You could spend decades searching for someone to fill that void inside you, but until you address the root cause of your emptiness, no amount of external love will ever be enough. It's like trying to fill a bucket with a hole in the bottom. No matter how much water you pour in, it will never stay full. Think about your past relationships or your current situation. How many times have you compromised your values just to keep someone interested? How often have you dimmed your light to make others comfortable? How many times have you ignored red flags because you were afraid of being alone? The painful reality is that many of us have become experts at abandoning ourselves while waiting for others to choose us. We've mastered the art of contorting ourselves into shapes that we think will be more lovable, more acceptable, more worthy of attention and affection. But what if the love you're seeking isn't something you need to wait for at all? What if it's not something you need to earn or prove yourself worthy of receiving? What if the love you're desperately searching for is already within you, waiting to be acknowledged and expressed? You see, the greatest love story you'll ever experience isn't with another person. It's with yourself. And unlike those fairy tales we grew up with, this love story doesn't begin when someone else enters the picture. It begins the moment you decide to stop waiting and start living. Think about it. And would you want someone to love you only because they need you to complete them? Would you want to be responsible for someone else's happiness and sense of worth? Of course not. That's not love. That's dependency. Real love isn't about filling voids or fixing broken pieces. Real love is about two whole people choosing to share their completeness with each other. But here's where most of us get stuck. We know intellectually that we should love ourselves first, but how do we actually do it? How do we break free from this pattern of waiting and start creating the life and love we deserve? It starts with a simple but profound shift in perspective. Instead of asking, why doesn't anyone love me? Start asking, how am I not loving myself? Instead of wondering, when will I find the right person? Ask yourself, what kind of person am I becoming while I wait? Every time you catch yourself waiting for someone to validate your worth, stop and ask yourself, what would I do right now if I truly loved myself? Would I stay in this situation that makes me feel small? Would I continue to accept crumbs of affection when I deserve the whole feast? Would I keep waiting for someone else's permission to start living my life fully? The truth is, the most attractive quality you can possess isn't physical beauty, wealth, or status. It's the genuine love and acceptance you have for yourself. When you truly love yourself, you become magnetic. Not because you're trying to attract others, but because you're finally emanating the energy of self-worth and authenticity. But self-love isn't just about positive affirmations and bubble baths. It's about making hard choices. It's about setting boundaries even when you're afraid of losing people. It's about speaking your truth even when your voice shakes. It's about choosing yourself even when it feels selfish. Remember that person who hasn't called? That relationship that ended? Instead of seeing these as rejections or failures, what if you viewed them as redirections? What if every person who didn't choose you was actually the universe protecting you, guiding you back to yourself? You see, when you stop waiting for someone to love you, something magical happens. You start noticing all the love that's already present in your life. You begin to appreciate the beauty of your own company. You start treating yourself with the same kindness and respect that you've been saving for the one. And here's the most beautiful part. When you stop waiting for love and start being love, you create a ripple effect that touches everything and everyone around you. Your relationships become deeper because they're built on want rather than need. Your choices become clearer because they're guided by self-respect rather than fear of loneliness. But this journey isn't always easy. There will be days when old patterns try to pull you back. Days when the waiting feels more comfortable than the doing. Days when you question whether you're worthy of the love you're learning to give yourself. These moments aren't failures. They're opportunities to practice what real love looks like. On your journey to stop waiting for love, you'll discover something profound. The way you've been loving others is often a reflection of how you failed to love yourself. Think about it. How many times have you given away your power in the name of love? How often have you silenced your intuition because you were afraid of being alone? You know, that feeling when you're in a relationship and you're constantly walking on eggshells. When you're afraid to express your true feelings because you might upset the other person. When you're constantly monitoring their mood, their reactions, their responses. That's not love. That's fear wearing love's costume. Let's talk about something that might feel uncomfortable at first. Let's talk about the addiction to waiting. Yes, addiction, because that's what it becomes when we've spent years, perhaps decades, putting our lives on hold while waiting for someone to choose us. We become addicted to the fantasy, to the possibility, to the maybe someday. This addiction shows up in subtle ways. It's in the way you check your phone every few minutes, hoping for a message. It's in how you carefully craft your social media posts, hoping to catch someone's attention. It's in the way you say yes when you want to say no, just to keep the peace. It's in how you make yourself smaller, dimmer, less threatening, more agreeable, all in the hope that this time finally someone will stay. But here's what happens when you're addicted to waiting. You miss the beauty of the present moment. You miss opportunities for growth, for joy, for real connection. Not just with others, but with yourself. You miss the chance to discover who you really are when you're not trying to be what someone else wants you to be. The truth is, waiting for someone to love you is a form of self-abandonment. Every time you put your dreams on hold because you're waiting for a partner to pursue them with, you're abandoning yourself. Every time you stay in a situation that diminishes your spirit because you're afraid of being alone, you're abandoning yourself. Every time you silence your truth to keep the peace, you're abandoning yourself. And here's the painful irony. The more you abandon yourself while waiting for someone else's love, the harder it becomes to recognize real love when it appears. Because real love doesn't ask you to abandon yourself. Real love doesn't require you to become smaller. Real love doesn't demand that you dim your light. So how do we break free from this pattern? How do we stop the cycle of waiting and start living? It begins with a decision to become your own beloved. This doesn't mean you stop wanting relationships or connection. It means you stop treating them as the source of your worth. It means you start building a relationship with yourself that's so strong, so nurturing, so complete that any other relationship becomes a choice rather than a necessity. What I do today? If I truly love myself, would I still accept breadcrumbs of attention from people who aren't ready to offer their whole heart? Would I still spend hours obsessing over someone who shows up only when it's convenient for them? Would I still put my dreams on hold while waiting for someone to pursue them with? The answers might make you uncomfortable. They might challenge everything you've believed about love and relationships, but that discomfort is the beginning of your liberation. When you truly love yourself, you stop accepting situations that make you question your worth. You stop trying to convince people to choose you. You stop waiting for permission to live your life fully. You start recognizing that the love you've been waiting for isn't something that someone else can give you. It's something you cultivate within yourself. Think about the relationships in your life right now. Are they nourishing your spirit, or are they depleting it? Are they helping you grow? Are they keeping you small? Are they based on mutual respect and support? Or are they built on dependency and These aren't easy questions to answer. They require brutal honesty with yourself. They require you to look at patterns you've been avoiding, to acknowledge truths you've been denying. But this honesty is the foundation of self-love. And here's something crucial to understand: that self-love isn't selfish. In fact, it's the opposite. When you truly love yourself, you have more love to give others. Not the desperate, clingy kind of love that comes from need, but the abundant, generous kind of love that flows from wholeness. Think about it like this. When you're on an airplane, they always tell you to put your own oxygen mask on first before helping others. Why? Because you can't help anyone if you're gasping for air yourself. The same principle applies to love. You can't truly love others until you've learned to love yourself. This journey of self-love will transform every aspect of your life. You'll start making decisions from a place of self-respect rather than fear. You'll start attracting relationships that mirror your own self-worth. You'll stop settling for less than you deserve, not because you're demanding perfection, but because you finally recognize your own value. But perhaps the most beautiful part of this transformation is how it affects your relationship with time. When you stop waiting for someone to love you, you stop putting your life on hold. You stop treating the present moment as just a waiting room for some future happiness. You start living fully, right now exactly as you are. Remember those dreams you've been putting off until you find the right partner? Start pursuing them now. That trip you've been waiting to take with someone special, take it solo. That restaurant you've been saving for a romantic date. Go there and enjoy your own company. Because the truth is, there's nothing more attractive than someone who's fully alive, fully engaged in their own life, not waiting for anyone's permission to be happy. You might be wondering right now, what does it actually look like to stop waiting for love? What does it mean to truly choose yourself? How do you break free from patterns that have become as natural as breathing? Let's talk about the moments that truly test your commitment to self-love. Those late-night moments when loneliness feels like a physical weight on your chest. Those times when you see others finding what you've been searching for and jealousy threatens to consume you. Those moments when going back to old patterns feels easier than moving forward alone. These are the moments that define your journey. These are the moments when you have to actively choose yourself, even when every fiber of your being wants to fall back into familiar patterns of seeking external validation. Think about the last time you felt rejected or abandoned. Remember how your first instinct was probably to question your worth, to wonder what you could have done differently, to blame yourself for not being enough? That's the old pattern speaking. That's the voice of someone who's still waiting for others to define their value. But what if you could respond differently? What if, instead of seeing rejection as a reflection of your worth, you could see it as protection? What if every person who walked away was actually clearing space for something better? Not just a better relationship, but a better relationship with yourself. You see, when you stop waiting for someone to love you, you start noticing all the ways you've been leaving yourself behind. You start seeing how often you've sacrificed your peace for someone else's comfort. How frequently you've ignored your intuition to maintain a connection that wasn't serving your highest good. The journey of self-love requires you to become intimately acquainted with your own heart. Not the heart that's been conditioned by society's expectations, not the heart that's been shaped by past hurts, but your true heart, the one that knows exactly what it needs to thrive. This means learning to distinguish between love and attachment, between genuine connection and desperate clinging, between healthy compromise and self-abandonment. It means learning to sit with uncomfortable emotions without immediately seeking someone else to fix them or distract you from them. Consider your current relationships, not just romantic ones, but all of them. How many are based on genuine love and mutual growth, and how many are rooted in habit or fear? How many of these relationships would survive if you started speaking your truth consistently? If you stop making yourself smaller to keep others comfortable, These questions might feel threatening because they challenge the very foundation of how you've been approaching relationships. They force you to confront the ways you might have been using relationships as a distraction from your own growth, as a Band-Aid for your own unhealed wounds. But here's the beautiful truth. When you stop using relationships to fill your empty spaces, you create room for authentic connections to flourish. When you stop needing someone to complete you, you can finally appreciate how others complement you. When you stop waiting for someone to rescue you, you discover strength you never knew you had. This journey requires you to become your own best friend, your own confidant, your own cheerleader. It means celebrating your own achievements, comforting yourself through disappointments, and standing up for yourself when necessary. It means treating yourself with the same kindness, patience, and understanding that you so readily offer others. Think about how you treat someone you deeply love, a child, a dear friend, a beloved family member. You encourage their dreams. You comfort them when they're hurting. You speak to them with kindness and respect. You forgive their mistakes. You celebrate their victories. Now ask yourself, you treat yourself with the same level of care and consideration. Most of us are shocked to realize how differently we treat ourselves compared to how we treat others we love. We're often our own harshest critics, our own worst enemies. We say things to ourselves that we would never dream of saying to someone else. We hold ourselves to impossible standards and then beat ourselves up when we inevitably fall short. But what if you could change that narrative? What if you could become as compassionate with yourself as you are with others? What if you could love yourself with the same fierceness and dedication that you've been saving for someone else? This isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming whole. It's about embracing all parts of yourself, the light and the shadow, the strength and the vulnerability, the certainty and the doubt. It's about recognizing that you are worthy of love, not because of what you do or achieve, but simply because you exist. When you truly embody this truth, something miraculous happens. The desperate need to find someone to complete you begins to fade. The compulsive checking of your phone diminishes. The anxiety about being alone starts to dissolve. You start to experience a new kind of freedom. The freedom that comes from knowing that your worth isn't tied to anyone else's presence or approval. This doesn't mean you won't feel lonely sometimes. It doesn't mean you won't desire partnership or connection. But these feelings no longer control you. They no longer drive you to make choices that compromise your integrity or diminish your spirit. Instead, they become invitations to deepen your relationship with yourself, to explore your own capacity for love and growth. And here's the paradox. When you truly stop waiting for someone to love you, when you fully embrace and love yourself, you become naturally magnetic to the kind of love you've been seeking, not because you're trying to attract it, but because you're finally vibrating at the frequency of genuine self-worth and authenticity. Let's talk about what happens when you finally stop waiting. When you finally realize that the love you've been searching for has been within you all along. When you understand that the void you've been trying to fill with other people's attention and affection can only be filled by your own self-acceptance and love. The transformation doesn't happen overnight. It's not a single moment of enlightenment that suddenly changes everything. It's a series of small choices, daily decisions, moment-by-moment commitments to yourself. It's choosing yourself over and over again, especially when it's difficult. Think about how much energy you've spent trying to be chosen. How many hours you've invested in analyzing text messages, trying to read between the lines, attempting to decipher what someone else is thinking or feeling. How much mental and emotional energy you've expended trying to figure out why someone isn't giving you the love you desire. Now imagine redirecting all that energy toward your own growth, your own dreams, your own healing. Imagine what could happen if you took all the attention you've been giving to people who aren't choosing you and gave it to yourself instead. This is where the real magic begins to happen. When you stop pouring your energy into waiting and start investing it in living, your whole world begins to shift. You start to notice things you've been missing while you were focused on what was lacking in your life. You begin to see how the universe has been trying to love you all along, through the kindness of strangers, through the beauty of a sunrise, through the comfort of your own breath, through the friends who have been there consistently while you were chasing inconsistent love, through the opportunities for growth that you previously missed because you were too busy waiting for someone else to complete you. When you stop waiting for someone to love you, you start to recognize the love that's already present in your life. You start to appreciate the simple acts of self-care that you perform each day, the way you nourish your body with healthy food, the way you move your body in exercise, the way you rest when you're tired, the way you speak kindly to yourself when you make a mistake. These small acts of self-love might seem insignificant compared to the grand romantic gestures you've been dreaming of, but they're actually the foundation of all healthy relationships. Because how you treat yourself sets the standard for how others will treat you. Think about the relationships in your life that have left you feeling drained, diminished, or desperate for validation. What if those relationships weren't failures, but teachers? What if they were showing you exactly where you needed to strengthen your relationship with yourself? Every time someone couldn't give you the love you needed, they were actually pointing you back to yourself. Every time someone couldn't meet your expectations, they were showing you where you needed to show up more fully for yourself. Every time someone couldn't handle your light, they were inviting you to shine even brighter. When you truly understand this, you stop seeing past relationships as wasted time. You stop seeing current singleness as a waiting period. You start recognizing that every experience, every relationship, every moment of loneliness has been guiding you toward a deeper understanding of yourself and your own capacity for love. This is where true freedom begins. When you no longer need someone else to make you feel complete. When you no longer require external validation to know your worth. When you no longer wait for permission to live your life fully. In this freedom, you discover that love isn't something you get, it's something you become. You stop trying to find the right person and start focusing on being the right person for yourself. You stop waiting for someone to complete your life and start creating a life that feels complete. This doesn't mean you become closed off to love or relationships, quite the opposite. When you stop waiting for someone to love you, you become more open to authentic connections because you're no longer approaching relationships from a place of need or desperation, but from a place of wholeness and choice. You start attracting people who match your energy of self-love and self-respect. You start creating boundaries that protect your peace and preserve your dignity. You start recognizing red flags earlier because you're no longer willing to compromise your worth for the promise of love. And here's something remarkable. When you stop waiting for someone to love you, you become more lovable. Not because you've changed who you are, but because you finally allowed your authentic self to shine through. You're no longer trying to be what you think others want. You're no longer morphing yourself to fit someone else's expectations. You're simply being you, in all your glorious, imperfect, authentic beauty. This authenticity is magnetic. It draws people to you naturally, not because you're trying to attract them, but because there's nothing more attractive than someone who knows their worth and lives their truth. But perhaps the most beautiful part of this transformation is how it affects your relationship with time. When you stop waiting for love, you stop seeing your current life as a prelude to something better. You stop treating the present moment as a dress rehearsal for some future happiness. You start living fully right now exactly as you are. You begin to understand that your life isn't on hold until someone comes along to share it with you. Your happiness isn't dependent on finding the right partner. Your worth isn't determined by your relationship status. Your purpose isn't waiting to be discovered by someone else. Your journey to self-love isn't just about you. It's about breaking generational patterns of seeking validation outside ourselves. It's about showing others what's possible when we stop waiting and start living. It's about creating a new paradigm of love that begins with self-acceptance and radiates. Think about the ripple effect your transformation could have. When you stop accepting less than you deserve, you give others permission to raise their standards too. When you start treating yourself with respect and dignity, you show others what self-love looks like in action. When you stop waiting for someone to complete you, you demonstrate what it means to be whole on your own. Every time you choose yourself, you're not just changing your own life. You're changing the world around you. You're showing others that it's possible to be happy without waiting for someone else's approval. You're proving that love doesn't have to be earned through constant compromise or self-abandonment. Consider how different your life could be if you stopped putting your dreams on hold. If you stopped waiting for the perfect partner before pursuing your passions. If you stopped delaying your joy until someone comes along to share it with you. What could you accomplish if you redirected all the energy you've been spending on waiting into creating the life you... The truth is, the perfect time to start living fully isn't when you find the right person. It's right now. The perfect time to pursue your dreams isn't when you have someone to share them with. It's today. The perfect time to be happy isn't when you're in a relationship. It's this very moment. You start living with intention rather than hope. You start making choices based on what brings you joy rather than what might attract a partner. You start creating a life that feels fulfilling, whether you're single or in a relationship. This shift in perspective changes everything. Suddenly being single isn't a curse. It's an opportunity. An opportunity to develop a deeper relationship with yourself. An opportunity to discover what truly makes you happy. An opportunity to build a life that feels complete on its own terms. And when you do eventually enter a relationship, because love will come not when you're desperately seeking it, but when you're completely at peace with or without it, it will be from a place of choice rather than need. You won't be looking for someone to complete you. You'll be looking for someone to share your completeness with. This is what real love looks like. It's not about finding your other half. It's about being whole on your own and choosing to share your life with someone who is also... It's not about needing someone to make you happy. It's about being happy and choosing to share that happiness with someone else. Remember those moments when you felt like you weren't enough? Those times when you questioned your worth because someone couldn't see your value. Those days when you felt like you were somehow failing because you were single. Those weren't moments of weakness. They were invitations to love yourself more deeply. Every heartbreak, every rejection, every moment of loneliness has been guiding you toward this truth. The love you've been waiting for isn't something you find, it's something you become. The happiness you've been seeking isn't something someone else gives you. It's something you create for yourself. So stop waiting. Stop putting your life on hold. Stop treating yourself as incomplete just because you're single. Start living as if you're already whole, because you are. Start treating yourself as if you are worthy of love. Start creating the life you want right now, because you can. Your life is not a waiting room. Your present is not a preview of coming attractions. Your worth is not determined by your relationship status. Your happiness is not on back order waiting for someone else to deliver it. The time to live fully is now. The time to love yourself completely is today. The time to pursue your dreams is this very moment. Because when you stop waiting for someone to love you and start being the love you've been seeking, everything changes. Your life becomes a testament to what's possible when you choose yourself. Your happiness becomes a beacon for others who are still waiting. Your self-love becomes a revolution that inspires everyone around you. So let today be the day you stop waiting. Let this be the moment you decide to become your own beloved. Let this be the beginning of a love story that starts with you choosing yourself again and again, day after day, moment by moment. Remember, you are not meant to be someone's missing piece. It is you are meant to be your own masterpiece. You are not meant to wait for love. You are meant to be love. You are not meant to seek completion in others. You are meant to discover the completeness that already exists within you. The love you've been waiting for has been within you all along. The happiness you've been seeking has always been available to you. The life you've been dreaming of is waiting to be lived right now. Stop waiting. Start living. Start loving. Start with yourself. The rest will follow naturally, beautifully, perfectly, not because you're seeking it, but because you finally become it. This is your moment. This is your time. This is your love story, and it begins right now with you choosing yourself, loving yourself, and living your life fully. Not someday, not when someone comes along, but right here, right now, exactly as you are. Because in the end, the greatest love story you'll ever experience isn't about finding the right person. It's about becoming the right person for yourself. And that journey begins the moment you stop waiting and start living. Live fully. Love deeply. Start with yourself. The time is now